Hello all and welcome to the Rails board meeting. This is Friday, July 30th, 2021, and I am Thomas Stagg, Vice President of the Rails board, and I call this meeting to order at 1:00 p.m. Emily, will you please call roll?
Yes. Sue Busenbark. Here. Kelly Cox. Alice Creason. Here. Robin Hellenthal. Here. Diane Hollister. Here. Chris Kenny. Here. Jennifer McIntosh. Here. Jenna Namek-Luisi. Here. Scott Poynton.
Here.
Patricia Smith. Here. Becky Spratford. Thomas Stagg.
Here.
Beth Peppin. Here. Alex Vincina.
Here.
Karen Wojcik. Here. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. On to recognition of guests and announcements. We will handle guests and public comments at the same time. Let's start with guests here in Burr Ridge. Deidre?
Yes, Deirdre Brennan, Rails.
Ryan Hebel, Rails.
Joe
Philippek, Rails.
Cindy Grassmeyer, Constructive Disruption Consulting.
Monica.
Monica Harris, Rails.
Emily Feister, Rails.
Rails. Ann Slaughter, Rails.
Jim Krieger, Rails.
Layla Heath, Rails.
Mary Witt, Rails.
Oh, okay. And there's no public comments in Burr Ridge? Okay, on to the State Library. It doesn't look like anyone is there right now.
Joe, are you there, or Gwen? That's who we heard was going to be here. But... Oh, hi, Gwen.
Hey, Gwen.
Okay. So Gwen Harrison from the State Library.
Joe Natale.
And Joe Natale is here.
Oh, you're in a different place. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
sorry.
Any, Gwen?
No.
Or Joe, any public comments?
No,
Not yet.
No?
not yet, not yet.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Thank you.
And then on Zoom.
Are there any guests via Zoom?
Hi, Stephanie Chase from Constructive Disruption Consulting.
Okay, Stephanie, any public comments?
Not at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Now on to the oath of office.
Oh, Brian Smith
Oh.
is on. I guess you should ask if anybody else is out there.
Is there anyone else on? Anyone else on Zoom? Nope. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Now we're on to the oath of office. Will the newly elected board members please stand and recite the oath of office? Okay. I do solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of a member of the Board of Directors of the Reaching Across Illinois Library System according to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you and welcome to the Rails board. We're looking forward to working with you all. Okay. The slate of officers recommended by the nominating committee was included in your agenda packet. The floor is open to any nominations. Is there any nominations out there? If there are no other nominations, may I have a motion for approval of the slate of officers as presented?
I so move.
Moved by Sue,
Second.
second by Jenna. Thank you. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
We don't have to call roll.
We don't have to call.
Sorry about that.
Right.
That's okay. Okay, on to the consent agenda.
Wait, we have a new president.
Oh,
That'd be you. And other new officers.
Now you're presiding as the president.
Yeah.
okay. Okay, well, we need to move on to the consent agenda. You will notice the consent agenda includes minutes from our June meeting, and it is generally agreed by legal counsel that no one needs to abstain from approving minutes as long as your fellow board members who were in attendance at those meetings raise no objection to the minutes. Does anyone wish to move any item to the regular agenda for further discussion?
Okay.
We're all good with that? Okay. May I have a motion and second for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Scott, thank you, Scott. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Emily, will you please call roll?
I don't know if we need to do these.
No.
But we can, if you know,
Can.
we can always
Oh.
do them. But I mean, what is the wish of the board, to do the roll calls or not to do the roll calls?
Just do it.
Just do the voice vote? Okay.
All
So,
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes. Okay. So we got the,
I do, I don't know if this is out of order, but there was a minor correction to the minutes that I wanted to note.
oh, okay.
oh,
Under section 5, for the consent agenda for last month, it was noted under the ayes that Percy Harris, who was not actually present at the meeting, was listed among.
Correction
Thank you
noted.
very much,
I will make that
Alice.
change. Thank you.
We'll fix that.
yes, yes. Okay. So. Okay. Thank you. And so next is Jim Krieger with the financial report.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have the financial report for the actual fiscal year 2021, which concluded on June 30th. This report are all the governmental funds, and they are very, very close to what will be the final numbers. We may just have a few adjustments to record any expenses that we haven't recorded so far. First, I like to, for the sake of the new board members and the refresher of the existing of the previous members, I'd like to just take you through what is included in the financial report before I comment on it. And I don't know if you have this in front of you, but I'll tell you what it is. The first report is the cash position of the general fund. We show the cash and investments, and we deduct the capital project fund balance, and we come up with an unassigned cash and investments of the general fund, and we calculate how many months of coverage this would be. So basically, we're saying it's 21.8 months. That means we theoretically can operate for 21.8 months before we run out of cash. No extra cash comes in. And so that's the value of that number. The next schedule is the cash and equivalents and investments. This is a complete reporting of where our cash and investments are located. We basically are using 3 institutions to hold various funds. So one is the Illinois Fund, which is operated by the state treasurer. One is Hinsdale Bank and Trust, which is part of Wintrust. And we have our checking account there and our money market. We have almost 19 million in the money market. We use PMA Financial Network. We used to use them to invest in certificates of deposits. We haven't been doing that because the interest rates are so low. We may consider we're looking at in the future shifting money out of Illinois funds into their money market fund, which seems to be, appears to be just as solid, but earning a little bit better than Illinois funds has been. And we constantly reevaluate that. If interest rates ever get back up to decent levels, we may also go into CDs again to guarantee our rates of return. And then, okay, it's those three institutions. We also have some treasury bonds that are paying 4.5%. We got that through a donation many years ago, and at some point we'll cash that out when those bonds stop accruing interest. So that is the listing of where our money is held. Then we have a statement of net assets for the general fund. The general fund is where almost all of our operations are recorded. We list the assets and liabilities. The liabilities are minimal. The assets are primarily cash and investments. And then we also list the balance sheets for the special revenue fund. The special revenue fund is where we record our grants for specific purposes. And as I mentioned this morning, we had 3 grants for these type of purposes last year: the L2 project, the second part of the census project, and the E-Read grant. We only budgeted for one of these because the other 2 appeared after, well after we had prepared the budget and were into the fiscal year. You may not see this schedule because as of now, there's no activity in it, in these funds. So I don't put in, we don't want to needlessly clutter with information that isn't information if there's no activity. And then the other balance sheet is Capital Projects Fund. Quite a few years ago, we moved money out of the general fund, and we used the receipts from the sale of various properties that we had and started and designated this fund to pay for capital spending, which is primarily vehicles. We didn't buy anything last year. So
Right.
Our balance now is down to $2.4 million in this fund. So that hasn't been too active either. The next schedule is our general fund budget statement of revenues and expenses. This is where most of our activity is. We show the current month's revenues and expenditures. Then we show the year-to-date actual and the year-to-date budget and a variance schedule. And we also show the total budget for the year. So, but this summarizes all our, by our count, the revenues and expenses and how we're doing versus our budget. Our budget, well, I'll talk about how we did later. And then we also show a percent of remaining to spend. At the end of this schedule, you will also see you can see the total expenditures and the excess or deficiency of revenues over expenditures. That's kind of like our profit or loss through the year. And so we'll talk about that too. I'll get to that. And then I have the individual special revenue fund. We showed the total special revenue fund, which consisted of 3 grants this last year. And then schedules for detail by each project, the L2 and census and E-Read. And as I said, going into fiscal year 22, next month, you won't see these reports because there's no activity. And then we have schedules for 2 of our major activities that are part of the general fund. One is delivery and our delivery department. And this is all 4 locations that we deliver from and how that group is going. delivery is typically 30% of our total general fund spending. So it's a big piece. And then the second piece is the LSAP funding. And this is primarily consisting of our RSA personnel expenses, which we support, and the payments that we make to the 5 other LSAPs throughout the year. And this spending is another 20%. So in these 2 departments, we have 50% of our spending. So also I want to mention, as part of the consent agenda, there's a check and voucher register that is included in this. This has a listing of all the spending that we did in the previous month for your approval, and by vendor, and with the total by vendor. And you're free to certainly question what any of these are, as before you approve that. Now the highlights for fiscal year 2021. We had it was an interesting year because of the pandemic, and expenditures in some categories were very much below our budget, primarily travel. We did $4,000 of travel expenses.
Wow.
And our budget was over 100,000, just not much. And it's still just only gradually growing. But we were under budget in other areas, continuing education and some areas like that. But almost everything else, we were under budget this year. So in summary, and then on the revenue side, the state, after several years of lagging payments in which we didn't get a portion of our current year's area per capita award until well into the next year, the state more than caught up. They caught up, and we received all of the balance of our fiscal year 20 revenues, which were over $5 million outstanding. Plus our fiscal year 21. So we are up to date on our funding. And in fact, we received our last fiscal year 2021 payment on May 1st, which was the earliest we've ever been paid for a fiscal year. So hopefully that will continue. So our area and per capita grant revenues were $5.3 million, or $5.9 million over budget. Our expenditures were $627,000 under. So our fund balance, the general fund revenues exceeded expenditures by nearly $5.9 million, which means our general fund balance increased by that amount. Absent the money received from fiscal year 20, we would have had a $532,000 increase. That's matching up the current revenues with the current expenditures. So we did well even without that, and but the catching up on revenues was quite a boost. And as I mentioned earlier, we have 21.8 months of coverage. And the one big negative on revenues this year was the investment income, nearly 148,000 under. We keep thinking it can't go any worse than this, but we've had 8 straight months now of declining interest rates. It's got to stop somewhere, and there is some speculation that the rates are going to start turning around because of the inflation that's currently happening. That's about, I think I've covered about everything. Can I answer any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
On the checks and voucher register, I was just looking through it. Did one of the service vehicles get in an accident?
That happens from time to time, yeah, and we get insurance reimbursements for that.
It seemed like it was
Which one are you talking about?
There's an $11,000 amount, and that seemed like a lot and it says claim, so I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Usually they don't fix something.
That was the
$11,000.
one that was rear-ended real bad, wasn't it, Mark? One of the vans got rear-ended and,
I think it was T-boned. This one was T-boned.
oh, okay. That's even worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one I had, just because it struck me funny, it says Post-it notes, $7,000.
Those are,
Is that like-
those are delivery stickers.
Okay, because I'm like, what, are they solid?
Those are delivery stickers that
Okay.
we make,
Because I thought, I can get a better price for you.
you'll see that coming through about every 2 months
Oh.
and $7,000 to $8,000.
Thank you.
As far as the vehicles go, I mean, how many miles do you drive a year, Mark?
A little over 1 million miles a year.
Yeah,
on
so-
vehicles.
It's,
How many
there's,
vehicles are there?
There's 40 vehicles.
and so, I mean, there's a lot of collisions with deer, for example.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's, yeah. I don't think,
I was just curious.
oh, no, I know.
An accident.
It's just not opportunity to say 1 million miles, you know. And I don't think, I don't read that we fixed that vehicle, but maybe we did. I don't know, but,
The last vehicle, it actually was fixed.
oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Yeah, these are the expenditures to fix it, but
Thank you.
They were pretty much reimbursed by insurance claims.
that's good.
I don't know if everybody heard, Mark just also mentioned that the little Post-it delivery notes, around 1 million of those were ordered. That's how many.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
I
you,
knew
Scott.
that there was something I was missing.
And if we get automated, they'll go away.
That's right. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I went to some libraries and that was a comment about the Post-it notes and
Yeah.
how they like strip them off and in the basket they go. And
Yeah.
They're looking forward to automation. I guess.
Yeah.
And for your information, we get our liability, our workers' comp, cyber, basically all insurances other than medical through the Lyra Cooperative, of which I am on the board and treasurer of that. And we get our health insurance, health and related insurances from Limerick, of which I am the treasurer of that one too. So we watch what
We
they're
keep
doing and
close
make sure our
track.
claims go all right.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Jim, for wearing so many hats.
Yeah,
too.
right.
That, so, thank you, sir. I will start off with the reports. My only report is that we will have a closed session at the end of this meeting. So let's get on to the committee reports. The committee report from Paul Mills, Chair of the Consortia Committee, was included in the packet. And if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to ask. I was in that meeting.
And there's actually just a small update on that report. Aaron Skog is listed as one of the members of the working group because we had asked him to participate. And then the SWAN board decided to appoint Dawn Bussey, who is a member of the SWAN board and also their representative to the Consortia Committee. So she takes Aaron's place on the committee, and that came to light after we sent the report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So then we will start with Jenna on the Advocacy Committee.
Hi, everyone. The Advocacy Committee did not meet in July, but we do have an action item and a brief discussion item under old business that we will attend to later on in the meeting. And I know that we're going to be discussing this later in the agenda, but I would love to see any new board members or current board members who are interested in serving on the Advocacy Committee join us. We're doing a lot of great work and we would love to have you be a part of that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Diane, the equity. Yeah.
The EDI subcommittee have met in July and they will report to the umbrella EDI in September. And in turn, I will have a report for our September board meeting.
Thank you. The executive committee did not meet. The policy committee did not meet. How about the resource sharing committee? Monica?
Resource Sharing Committee did not meet in July, but they are scheduled to meet on August 9th. For the next
Thank you. And Sue, the Universal Service
We did not
Committee.
meet, but we're scheduled to meet September 9th.
Okay.
I think from 1 to 3.
Sounds like a busy September start.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Next, Deidre and the Rails Monthly Report.
Yes, thank you. So this month, my report's a little bit more of an overview than it usually is, just to familiarize new board members with it. You'll see that the first part of it is entitled, is a document entitled Action Items from Previous Meeting and Status Report. And this was something that was requested by the board as a result of that engagement survey that we talked about this morning, where they just asked for, a recap of what had gone on sort of, between meetings and, things that were still pending. So you'll see that we're going to discuss board visibility again. Later on in the agenda, strategic planning. Stephanie Chase is out there and Cindy is here. They'll be talking to us. And then there is an agenda item later about the Universal Service Committee request for a board statement, which we'll talk about then. As far as the rest of my report goes, I first of all want to tell you that on August 4th, on Wednesday, I'm going to be going on vacation. And yeah, and so I'll be away for, I will be really on vacation for about a week and a half. We're going east. And I have rented a house on a beach in Delaware, and we're going to be in that house until the middle of September. But I will obviously be working remotely for a lot of that time. But it will be a chance to see, bless you, my 94-year-old mother-in-law, who we've not seen in 2 years, my grandchildren, who I've not seen in 2 years, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. So we're just going to sort of like be somewhere and people will come and see us. But I will be attending many meetings. So you will, but I will not be at the August board meeting. Monica is going to handle that. We were really thrilled that we won the Atkinson Award, the Hugh Atkinson Award. That was absolutely wonderful. We were nominated by a member. It was a surprise to us, a wonderful surprise. I hope you all had a chance to see the wonderful mural in the hallway where you come in from the parking lot. That thanks very much to communications and Nicole Zimmerman specifically. And there'll be a lot more. It's all related to our 10th anniversary, and there'll be a lot more materials, celebrations, etc., that will be going on throughout the year. Let's see. What else did I want to tell you about? I think that's pretty much it for me. But Ann Slaughter is going to just talk to you briefly about the network outage that we had last week. We've started to analyze that, and we're not done yet. But we just thought, since we're all here, that we should give you an update.
Yep, sure thing. So July 22nd, I think many of you are aware that our storage network, or our SAN, experienced a catastrophic failure. Our websites, email, and our files were offline and inaccessible for about 24 hours. Our IT staff, our wonderful IT staff, worked all day through the night and into the next day to restore services, including traveling to Springfield to pick up our duplicate SAN. So this event obviously had a significant impact, and we sincerely apologize for the inconvenience and the disruption. So we've spent the past week in a thorough debriefing process to, once everything was restored, we started debriefing. So reconstructing the event, kind of minute by minute from multiple perspectives and identifying learning points that we can use in our work moving forward. That is the mindset that we're taking, as opposed to looking for, blame. And I'm going to share some of the key points, but our process has revealed more points at a much more detailed level that the IT department will be incorporating into their operations, both at that detailed level and at a strategic level. So the first big learning point has to do with the vendor for this appliance. It's kind of a long story, but the vendor had been acquired and had been unresponsive to our attempts to renew our support contract. At the time of the outage, we were not covered by a maintenance support contract. So they weren't transparent in their own transition, and we were caught unprepared. So we're going to take any steps that we can have in our own control to be as well prepared as we can, and that involves expanding our timeline for evaluating maintenance contracts, farther back, so that we have earlier planning, more transition time, and that involves more, establishing some more detailed tracking practices. Happily, we had already budgeted to purchase a new SAN in this fiscal year. So that has already been in process. Wes, our IT manager, and his team have already been evaluating products. We are in the midst of a couple other large IT projects that you're going to hear about in a minute. But we're going to expedite the process to replace the SAN as much as possible. This will also likely be the last storage network that will physically live in our data center. We'll be looking to cloud services for our next transition, which is another huge learning point for us, or really a confirmation of a direction that we've been heading in already. We've already been in the midst of transitioning services to the cloud rather than locally hosting them. We are working on that right now for our phone system, transitioning that fully to Zoom. And then we expect to go live on Office 365 for email in early fall. So our email will also no longer be on premises after that point. Bigger picture, we've begun the process of evaluating each of our websites and services, looking at feasibility for cloud hosting versus staying locally hosted, because some things will always have to be on premises, but others make more sense and are becoming more cost efficient to manage in the cloud. And then mapping out those potential transitions. Every new website or service that we add will also be evaluated using that same criteria, cloud versus locally hosted. Another big piece is disaster recovery. So that duplicate SAN that was in Springfield was part of an ongoing project to establish full replication and backup in the state of Illinois' Central Management Services, or CMS, data center. There are a number of factors why that project has lost some feasibility, some network compatibility issues, and then also, we're not so sure about the future of that data center. So we're going to be reworking our disaster recovery solution accordingly, with the goal of establishing more robust monitoring than we currently have, specific planning and documentation for service. And this is also already in progress on a number of fronts. As you can imagine, this kind of goes down very deep to at the service level, just ensuring that we have documented procedures for each one of those. So like I said, that is just a quick summary. It's been a week, so we've had quite a few meetings about this already, really digging in, and as with everything, the work is ongoing. But I'm happy to answer questions, and this is going to involve some pretty big ticket items, as IT stuff usually does, so you'll certainly hear more about it.
Thank you, Anne. We just wanted you all to be aware that it was.
As someone who works in library technology, I know how much fun it is to be on the end of this, receiving into those system down calls and the long hours that go into recovering from something like that. So thank you, Anne, Wes, and all of the IT staff for your work.
Yes. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, great. They're a great team, great IT team. I should also mention, thank you, Anne. I should also remind us that Jim is retiring in January, Jim Krieger. he's been an absolutely superb director of finance for us. So we're working on, I put this in my report as well, on I won't say replacement, a successor to this very important position. Jim has been here longer than me, so longer than most of the staff. So
2 months after we formed.
Yep. Right. So happy to answer any questions.
No questions? Okay. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Deidre.
Sure.
And now we hear from the State Library. Gwen?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Here we go. Heartland, Rails, and CPL will receive the system area per capita annual report forms this week. The annual reports are due to the State Library by September 30th. We appreciate the partnership with systems in promoting the IMLS ARPA funds. Grants will be awarded using funds from the United States Institute of Museum and Library Services under the provisions of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And I will now explain the 3 offerings, and the applications are due August 15th, 2021. Bouncing back from the pandemic, developing resources for the local workforce. This grant is available to public and academic libraries only. The next one, expanding digital inclusion, transforming library services. This grant offering is open to all libraries. And then the third one, on the road to recovery, transforming library spaces. This grant is open to all libraries. Please refer to our grants webpage on CyberDrive, Illinois for more information, or you can certainly call us, and we've been receiving lots of phone calls as well. And hot off the press, Joe just shared with me that the non-resident rules have been published on page 9538 in the July 30th issue of the Illinois Register. And if you have any questions concerning that, Joe is here to answer them. Are there any questions concerning my report?
One of those grants is available to systems too, right, Gwen?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Do you know which, could you remind me which one?
Let me think about this.
Okay.
I think, you know what, I can't remember, and I don't want to misspeak, but yes.
Okay, that's all right.
Because we did talk about this, and yeah, there is one that's available to you guys. Yeah. Do you remember which one? I can't remember which one it is. Yeah. I know that it's not bouncing back from the pandemic because
okay.
it has to drill down to our patrons. You know, that's where that has to be. But it might.
Okay, when you remember, just shout it out.
You know what? I'll go find out when I'm done.
Okay.
From Mandy, and she can tell me, okay? Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? Thank you for that question. Are there any other ones that I might be able to answer?
Sorry. So Joe, do you want to say anything about the administrative rules?
I'm gonna go talk to Mandy.
And we can't see you. Could you
he's
move
coming
over
on.
so we can?
He's coming.
Oh, all right.
I'm gonna say more than you want to hear, but you know, the systems are asking some that, you know, what's going on, what's the latest version of the rules. And we really couldn't say because we were negotiating to the very end with the JCAR staff on what they were going to say. So one thing, and I brought them. We expanded the definition of student to, it was originally, it was kindergarten through 12. Now the school lunch program covers pre-K through 12. So that was expanded. We also just had it for public school students and kids that go to nonprofit schools. JCAR requested that we included homeschool students under the age of 18. So they're included in these rules.
Great.
This is the cards for kids things I'm talking about.
Yep.
We got a lot of letters and suggestions. So it gets a little convoluted, but it'll work where if a community is if it's under that community eligibility where all the kids are able to go, the school can provide, qualify for the free lunch, the school can provide that information. Or the parents can, if they have the form from the school, they can provide it. The question we were getting, people were concerned that what if there was that everybody was included, but they were aware there are students whose families are above the poverty. The public library can request, we try to keep it at a minimum, income verification. And that would be up to the public library to develop a form that would get that information about what a family's income is. JCAR wanted us to use the school, the State Board of Education form on the income eligibility, but we didn't think it was appropriate to use another agency. And we thought about creating a form, but we just thought, like the non-resident card, there's minimum things that we ask for on that card, and there's minimum things we ask for in the application. And we're just asking at a minimum that it shows the current household size, current annualized income, and is signed by an adult. So that's the cards for kids. And for if it's a homeschool student, they would have to provide also on that form income verification, because they're not going to get anything from the school. They're not getting the free lunch, but just as long as they could show they would qualify. And then I want to reiterate on that e-resource option, libraries do not have to do that if they don't want to. And they don't have to make all their resources available. It's up to them on what they want to do. And one more thing. On the, we put in the rule about if a veteran has a 70% disability, the non-resident fee is waived. And they need to bring into the library a form, their tax form for the county. If it's a renter and he doesn't own the property, or she doesn't own the property, they need a letter from the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs that indicates they have a 70% disability. So I stretched it out to give Gwen time to get that information, but that's it in a nutshell. And if there's any other questions, as you look at it, give us a call.
So I have a question, and then I know that Patty has a question. My question is in terms of the library thinking that a family, even though the entire district may qualify for the reduced lunch, right? Doesn't mean that every individual family does. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. But libraries don't have to ask if they don't want to, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, we're going to encourage libraries to not inquire about individual income levels of families, because the point here is to extend service, and that's a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work for libraries to find that out. And it's not going to be a pleasant interchange with patrons. A lot of nodding of heads going on here, Joe.
I was doing that when I was 15 years old at the circulation desk.
What's that? Sorry?
When I worked at the circulation desk when I was a page, when I was 15, I had to answer those questions.
Oh, right. I know you know.
It's just some libraries, they want to do it, so let them do it.
Well, we're not going to recommend that. Okay, I know you're just a messenger. I think you answered Patty's question. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
We'll tag.
I'm sure we'll have more as time goes on. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Gwen.
Hi, Gwen.
I've got it's the Spaces grant that systems are eligible to apply for, okay?
Okay, thank
On
you.
the road to recovery, transforming library spaces. That's the one you're eligible to apply for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Gwen. Thanks, Joe. Now on to new business and board committee assignments. In the packet, you had a list of the committees, and we would like to fill the empty positions. Please note, we do have a change to the Advocacy Committee charge under unfinished business today as well. If anyone would like to volunteer for any open positions, you may do so now or send me an email. And because I know all the descriptions have gone from brief little things to massive volumes. So it does take a while to go through all that material. So
I do have a clarification. I'm still not listed on the Universal Services Committee, so I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to make that
Yep.
change. If I'm still welcome.
Sorry. This list is all, we got, okay. We also need the Foia officer and an OMA officer. And the Foia officer is, these are largely, there's not a lot of work associated with these. Foia requests come in, the staff deal with them, but there's a law requires that a board member also be a Foia officer.
And also they have to do the extra training, of course, that we can't do yet.
Yeah, right. And then the OMA officer is just somebody that sort of is our helper and sort of watchdog that we comply with that. So I think I can safely say that you wouldn't be signing up for a lot of work if you sign up for these two things. So as Tom said, it's completely up to you if you want to tell us today, tell Tom today or later. You want to read those charges, etc. It's all good.
Yes. So.
I would be willing to serve as Foia officer.
Foia? Okay.
You're volunteering? Awesome, thank you.
And I'd like to volunteer for the Universal Services Committee.
Okay. That's a very popular and hardworking committee, right, Sue?
Well, being that it affects me in my library, I've got lots of good people on it.
It affects all of us.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Okay.
I would like to volunteer for the Advocacy Committee since that seemed to have been gutted by the departing trustees.
Yes.
Great, thank you. This is wonderful.
Can more than one person go on?
Yes.
For the Advocacy Committee, I would like to volunteer
Great.
for that one.
Oh, Jenna, that plug really worked.
I know.
Wow. Other committees will be jealous.
Having, I think, just read every word ever written about OMA for my own board, I'm willing to.
Oh, great. Thanks, Scott. Sorry about that, though.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on to 9.2, Rails Board vaccination and mask policy.
Yes. So this is such a strange.
Yes.
So last month, before the rise in infection rates due to the Delta variant, the board approved this policy that's in your packet for staff, a voluntary vaccination program. which includes an incentive for vaccination for staff and a procedure that staff that provide vaccination, documentation to us, to HR, don't have to wear masks when they're in the building. So what the board agreed to last month was that we would ask the new board to, formally approve that the board would follow this policy. So in other words, if you're vaccinated, you will, give some sort of documentation to HR, which thank you, Scott, you already did that. And then you don't have to wear a mask. But of course now, I don't know what we're going to do because there is no, in terms of this rising infection rate and what the governor is saying about state facilities. We're not really a state facility, but there's a lot of questions about what the rules, the guidelines, the recommendations are going to be. And this is just the first day too. So I think, we would still appreciate it if you would follow this policy, and at least we'll all be on the same boat there, and then we'll just see what happens as we go forward. So
we need a motion.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So is there any discussion on this before we ask for a motion? No. Okay. May I have a motion and second that the Rails board adoption of the vaccination and mask policy?
I make the motion to accept the policy as written.
Okay, thank you. And a second?
Second, Diane.
Second, Diane, okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The policy is adopted. 9.3, the election of an at-large member to the executive committee. I'd like to move this to the next board meeting. Just for expediency and some of the other things. So then we can go ahead and, yeah. So why don't we take a 10-minute break and we'll resume at, should we make it a 15-minute
Well,
break?
we do, because we want to take a picture in the atrium.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we take a kind of 5-minute break and then everyone meet in the atrium for a board picture.
Okay.
So we'll be back at like 10 past 2 or so.
Yeah, 10
Okay.
past 2.
Okay.
Okay, resuming the Rails board meeting with unfinished business and the executive director's goals. Deidre?
Yes, thank you. So you have a list of draft goals in your packet. I do these every year for the board. And there's usually about this amount. You'll see that they cover everything that, it's, as I always say, it's difficult to separate my goals from Rails goals, obviously. So these are certainly organizational goals as well, related to all of our major initiatives and the work, all of our work, resource sharing, advocacy. School libraries are specifically called out in one of them on number 8. The stewardship, ensuring that we remain financially stable. Hiring Jim's successor, because after Jim retires, there are a couple later in the year, a couple other members of the department are also planning to retire. So there's going to be a lot of change in that department. So these are not in any particular order, because I would be tempted to make them all like 1A, 1B, 1C and all like that. I'm willing to give it a try if you want me to, but essentially I just want to make sure that this all makes sense to you, that there's nothing missing, that you don't, and if you have any questions or suggestions. They do get formally approved by you or me.
Do you provide updates throughout the year on your goals, or is that at the end when?
I have in the past. That was one of the things that, I mean, all of the strategic plan goals are
In there,
reported on
yeah.
every month. I used to write a semi-annual, report on the progress. I didn't do it last year because it was when we were in the midst of the engagement survey to see what people really wanted. I can certainly do that.
I don't know that I'm recommending it. I was
Quarterly
just
or-
curious about past practice.
Yep. I keep track. What do you all think? Would you like it if I did that? I'm happy to do it. I just didn't, this is the first year I didn't do it.
I would like that. Just
Okay.
to see, then you can see progress. that way.
Sure. Okay,
Any other discussion
that's a great suggestion.
on that? Okay.
Probably do it quarterly.
And they're always thorough as everything could be. I mean, they're just,
Yep.
it is. Okay, so may I have a motion and a second for approval of the executive director goals fiscal year 2022?
So moved.
Jennifer, thank you. Second?
Second.
Second, Karen. Okay, thank you. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
On to 10.2, Universal Service Committee recommendation.
So, Sue can chime in on this as well. So at the last Universal Service Committee meeting, and you were there, right, Jennifer? No, you weren't at that one. Okay. Anyway, we had we always have very good meetings. There was and we had a very, we had a dialogue, a conversation with the state library. Is the state library back?
Wonderful.
Okay. We had a conversation with the state library, and I wrote a memo to this effect. It's in your packet that this is not that, Rails, the Rails board decided a few years ago to establish this committee because it was seen as and still is very important job in the System Act, as this morning, that it is the job of a system to try, to work on expanding service to the unserved. But it is not a Rails problem alone. It is not a problem that Rails can solve by itself. And so the specific ask from a couple of members of the committee in particular, and that the committee as a whole agreed to, was that the Rails board would make a statement that would specifically ask for the state library to take leadership on this role and to bring together somehow stakeholders that could figure out an overall strategy for making this happen. We've been very focused on incremental projects, kind of the Cards for Kids being an example, but there needs to be a bigger picture approach to this. So I talked to Greg McCormick about this, and he said that it needs to be what the vision is of the library system as well. So we're kind of like got the ball handed back to us a little bit, I thought. And he's not at the meeting. I mean, I think what I would like to do is wait until he's at one of our, waited this long, we can wait another couple of months, maybe in September, when you guys have all had more of a chance to, get acclimated for the new members. And we've had our next, we'll have a meeting in September, right? Sue, did you say?
Yes, September 9th.
Yeah, and have Greg present for the conversation, because I really think that the committee member who made the suggestion is Gail Bush, and I absolutely agree with her about this. You were at that meeting too.
Yes.
I knew, yeah. I mean, it was a very strong suggestion.
Yes, it was.
And so I'm kind of like stuck this point. I don't, so that's my story. And I did provide you with a little bit of information just for you to, think about in the meantime. We do have a universal service plan. It's included in your packet. And, we've done a lot of work on this. Intergovernmental agreement templates. We've been very, a couple of suggestions that came from the committee a year ago or so were specifically about temporary cards for kids or teachers, even like summer reading cards. We actually proposed some legislation that is similar to the Cards for Kids, but it wasn't a mandate. Cards for Kids is a mandate. And it's only for, the reduced school lunch part of the population. What we wanted was not a mandate, but that if boards of trustees of public libraries, the committee wanted, if local public library trustees wanted to waive the fee for anybody under 18 or under, they could. It's not a mandate, though. Gail actually has set up a meeting on Monday or Tuesday with me and Senator Laura Murphy, who was the person who filed the Cards for Kids Act. So, we're constantly, pushing this, but there needs to be a bigger strategy as well, because it's not just a Rails problem. So that's kind of where.
Has anyone spoken to Heartland?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, we've had conversations with Heartland and the state library over the years, but again, they need to be part of the conversation for sure.
How does Cook County work into this?
Well, Cook County has some unserved, if that's what you mean.
Now they're their own consortium.
No, you mean the Chicago Public
Yes,
Library?
I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah, they're all served. Yeah, there's no unserved in Chicago.
Okay.
You're coming back to, I guess, your kind of opening statement about this, that we've done a lot of incremental things, but it's time to maybe step back and try to do like the big thing. But then you said the state library preferred that this be sort of approached from at the system level versus the statewide level. Does that mean that we should feel free to propose legislation at the state level that would only affect Rails libraries?
Maybe. I mean, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we go with that?
Yeah. I can't imagine that being very popular in Springfield if it didn't include the whole state, but I don't know. But see, and this is why I think we need to have this conversation with Greg present too.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Dee.
I mean, you've been on public policy, you know how this.
Right.
Dee,
Hi, Gwen.
Hey, I'm going to let Greg know that he needs to.
Oh, he knows. Yeah.
Does he know? Okay.
I mean, I talked to him last week and he, I said, he said, well, we need to hear what the vision of the library system is. Like, okay.
All right.
I think he knows what our vision is, but we need to have, the board needs to be able to talk to him about it, I think.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Gwen. Sorry, I couldn't move it. Yes.
Well, okay, now, Joe, I'm not sure.
Natalie.
Okay, what he told us today, now is that from that review hearing that was held? On
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
Joe now.
Hi, Joe.
Hello again.
So is that, does this need to go to legislation then, or is
No, this is the final step.
This is the final.
So that
step.
was the
So
cards.
this is-
Yes, the
this
Cards
is
for
in
Kids
place
Act.
now.
Yes, and so then what had to happen, what the administrative rules do, and please correct me, Joe, if I'm wrong, but the administrative rules lay out kind of the process, like the
Okay.
specifics of how a law is implemented. Like the homeschoolers got added, which is a good thing,
Yes,
in my
yes,
opinion.
And preschool through.
Yeah.
um,
So it's
12,
it's done, right, Joe?
It's done.
Okay.
Yes, Jennifer.
So my thought was, at a previous meeting, we discussed the value in having a joint meeting with IHLS.
Yes.
And this
Right.
feels to me like first order of discussion, like shared vision for universal service statewide. It just feels like a good issue that we can have a lot of common ground on and really understand what it looks like downstate compared to, I think we have probably some varying understanding of what it looks like.
Yes. Yes, I think that's true because, I mean, we've had, conversations, as I said, and I think, the largest number of unserved residents by county is in Cook County, which is like sort of, at first you think, well, that's crazy because, CPL. But on the other hand, Cook County has the most people, so maybe it's not that surprising. So a lot of people think of it as very much a rural problem, but it's really this, as I was saying before, this building is not served.
Yes, I was so surprised that Burr Ridge is an unserved.
Parts of Burr Ridge.
Would it help to have Heartland and Rails draft one statement together?
Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, being able to have a joint meeting, and that's one of my goals too.
Yes.
So.
Yes. So.
Anything you want to add, Joe?
No, I mean, this has gone years and years and years.
I know.
I think having served many years on the ILA Public Policy Committee, I think what frustrates me is nobody seems to want to propose legislation unless they think they know in their minds that it's going to pass. And you don't get what you don't ask for. And so no one has ever been willing to make the proposal because they don't think it will pass. And guess what? Then nothing happens.
You are so right about that.
Right.
Yes. Well, that's where we are.
Okay, well, thank you. And now Deidre up again with the board visibility plan.
No, we're doing strategic planning.
Oh, excuse me.
No, that's all right. I had them in the, so I think we're going to turn it over to Monica. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, and I'll just be very, very brief.
Yeah. And, Stephanie
because
and
the start who are going to talk today is, you can see on your screen, this is Stephanie Chase, and up here, standing in our back corner here, is Cindy Fessmeyer. They're here today to talk about the strategic planning process that we're just beginning to undergo. So please welcome Stephanie and Cindy from Constructive Disruption.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. So I have the slides to share, and I know that they'll replace my face when I bring them up on the screen. So before I do that, I just wanted to give both Cindy and I a chance to introduce ourselves. So again, my name is Stephanie Chase. I've been working in libraries for about 20 years. I spent a decade as a library director in small and rural libraries in Vermont and New Hampshire, and a decade in executive library leadership in the Pacific Northwest, including until just before the pandemic as the director of libraries for Hillsboro, Oregon, so just west of Portland. I'm currently the executive director of the Libraries of Eastern Oregon, which is a 15-county, 50-member resource sharing consortium that covers about 50,000 square miles of rural Oregon. And I'm also the founding principal of the Constructive Disruption Consultancy, which is where I'm here today in that stead, which really focuses on strategic planning and change management, as well as strengths-based leadership. I'm also on my second term on the Public Library Association's Board of Directors, and I serve on the ALA Council along with Monica. So Cindy?
I'm behind you now. I'm Cindy Fessmeyer. I'm Stephanie's partner in this effort, working with you all. I'm the principal of Fessmeyer Consulting LLC, and I specialize in community engagement staff trainings, strategic planning, engaged leadership, and keynoting are some of my areas of expertise. For one more month, I'll be working with the Wisconsin State Library as their adult and community services consultant, and then I'll be doing this consulting thing full time because my day job is getting in the way of the work that I love, and that is this. Previous to my 2 years with the Wisconsin State Library, I was the director at the Columbus Public Library in Wisconsin, a small rural library with experience not unlike Stephanie's. And I'm happy to say that while I was there, we were named as a finalist for Library Journal's 2017 Best Small Libraries in America.
Oh, great.
I am a former board member of the Public Library Association. I was elected to sit in their small and rural seat, and I'm a trustee for the Madison Public Library in Wisconsin, where I live and pay taxes. This is my second career. Before library school, I spent 14 years in nonprofit organizing and management. That's me.
Thank you so much, Cindy. So we're excited to be starting to work with Rails and to work with you on the strategic planning process. And I hope you can see we're really bringing a wide variety of experiences in terms of libraries served, locations served, size served. And we really wanted to just share a little bit with you today, just a snapshot of the process that we'll be using. This is not the only time that we'll be here working with you as a board. We have several opportunities throughout to work more closely. But let me bring up my screen and we'll go through the slides. So again, we're really focusing today on your role in the Rails process. And again, I know for some of you, this is your very first board meeting. So thank you very much for making time for us today. And welcome to all of you at the beginning of this process. So we really focus on having a process that is really inclusive of staff, and that important for you too is really member focused in your case. When we create strategic plans, we're really looking for something that's very usable and practical, but that's also inspirational. So we're always trying to really balance those things together. We keep these three areas at the forefront. So we really believe a strategic plan should be a usable, living, breathing document. It should help us focus our resources, whether that's time or money or staff. And it should always be based on the needs of members and include the voices and contributions of your staff. We really hope that it can inspire staff at all levels to see themselves in their work and their priorities. And I think one of the things that's really great about entering this process is you're really starting a new strategic planning process built on a plan that also really had these elements at its heart. So again, our planning process really builds from that success. So from the current strategic plan that you have, the strengths of that plan, where you've really seen action. And we're really asking members to lead the shaping of the objectives and the measurements of success. So Cindy will talk a little bit more about our engagement, but there are crucial parts where we're really coming back to members, part of an iterative process, to really say, did we hear you correctly? Are we going in the right direction? Does this meet your expectations? And throughout, we really work to incorporate the core values of the International Association of Public Participation, or the IAP2. And I'm happy to send those along to you if you want to look them up. They're also easy to Google. But that really emphasizes the different levels of participation. And so we're really incorporating these core values into the process that we've built. So we really believe that member and staff participation in the process, and that includes you as members, and in the sense as board members, almost as staff, that your participation in the process is prioritized. And that could be different than strategic planning processes that we've done in the past, although not from what I understand, past processes here with Rails. That your contributions as members, as staff, as board members will really help shape the final product. So this is not just about engaging and getting information and then kind of leaving it there. It's about really being able to reflect back how your contributions shaped the strategic plan in the end. We're really working with Rails to make sure that we offer multiple modes of participation and to make sure that members can participate. And this has been actually one of the benefits, I think, of the pandemic, is the ease at which we can really incorporate a lot more virtual engagement and get more voices at the table. And then the end, as we come to a finished product, we'll really make sure that Rails has the tools that they need to share how that input from members, from staff, from you on the board really helps shape the final product. So that looks like some of how that looks is that we'll be building a stakeholder team to really co-lead the process. And that's going to have staff on it, member library representatives, and board members. So Deidre and Monica will be working together to create that stakeholder team. And we'll have several rounds of direct member engagement. So we'll have virtual town hall style, we'll have one-on-one and small focus groups, really, again, focusing on building the objectives and measurements of success. So we really think a plan is only as good as the data that goes into it, and that's statistics and opinions. So to gather those opinions, diverse stakeholders really must be able to engage in the process in a variety of ways. So I'm going to turn it over to Cindy so she can talk a little bit more about member engagement and the methods that we're going to be using.
Sorry about this tennis game that we're doing here, but I'm back over here again. So at the core of what we do, we're really talking about asking, listening, and these two go together. People automatically think they go together, but they don't. They're two different skill sets, and then doing something with that information, planning. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for you all to interact with member libraries and other stakeholders for Rails and across the state. This is your opportunity to engage directly with library folks and stakeholders, but from what I've heard thus far in the meeting, it sounds like that's something many of you are very familiar with anyway, so it shouldn't be a heavy lift, and in many cases, maybe you get kind of a twofer. Next slide, please, Stephanie. So what the engagement looks like is we're going to start with 2 virtual engagement sessions. One's going to be specifically for the board members, you all, and one is going to be specifically for the staff members. I think that this is really important because it helps you see what the process is going to look like because you've been a participant in it. So you're going to know what it feels like to be in these focus groups before we start doing them with stakeholders around the state. After you've been a participant, we're going to take the experience that you had doing some of that thinking together and brainstorm even more stakeholders. Our hope is that going through that process together, you might think of other people that you would really like to have go through a similar process to that. And like Stephanie said, we want a diverse group of stakeholders to talk to through these sessions. So together we're going to be conducting interviews and/or focus groups, probably both, and there will be a number of town hall listening sessions that have still to be, none of this is scheduled, none of this is exactly structured because this is something that we're going to be doing together. Ultimately, once we have collected this data, which is much more qualitative then, and we'll turn it into a report, it ultimately is going to inform the strategic initiatives and goals, and you will see those before anything is finalized. You and other stakeholders will get sort of a chance to have comments on those along the way. Next slide, Stephanie.
So again, I think Cindy is really highlighting the important role that you can each play, both in terms of leaders in Rails and thinking about who to really, who should be included, who to talk to, what to think about, but again, also bringing that expertise to the plan itself. So we're really asking for you as board members to be visible advocates and cheerleaders for the process. I think this is key. Your participation is key. So that visible advocacy role, encouraging and reaching out directly to your colleagues across the Rails service area to participate is going to be really important. You know, inviting your friends and your colleagues to make sure that they come to the town halls, for example. And so as we mentioned, we're going to be building a stakeholder group to lead this process with our guidance and support. And so that group really needs to be small enough to be nimble. And those who participate in it will need to be able to be part of a working group like that, because it's really responsible for a process that ensures everyone has an opportunity for feedback. And so again, I know there'll be several spots for board members in particular on that stakeholder group. And again, once that stakeholder group is together, as Cindy pointed out, that's when we'll really be able to start putting things on the calendar and planning things more specifically. As Cindy mentioned, the board as a whole has its own engagement and project check-in opportunities, and you are welcome and encouraged as board members to participate in those town halls and in the other engagement opportunities. So with your board member hat off, you know, bringing the expertise you can from the organization and the partnerships that you really represent. So just a little bit for next steps. It's like, again, I think it's like twisting. It's like we're doing like gentle yoga twisting. I'm going to hand it back to Cindy.
Hello. So as we're talking about, Stephanie and I are thinking of ourselves as guides and facilitators for this project. We are not the sole coordinators or conveners. This is a project that we're doing together. So this is for several reasons. One, we believe that a plan that involves the staff and board throughout its creation is much more likely to be used. You were there when it was created. You're going to have it at top of mind when you're gathering in the future after the plan is finalized. And it's not just a plan that somebody else created and thrust upon you. It's something that you had a hand in creating. Two, with such a large and varied member pool as I'm learning you serve, engaging with your members is paramount. It's crucial. So we believe that the visibility of the staff and board is crucial throughout the process. It will help grow, confirm, build relationships that are already existing with your networks, and will continue then past this process. Our next steps include virtual, we've talked about this, town halls for members, board, staff, focus groups, and one-on-ones. So I invite you now, why not start now, to start thinking about who that might involve as we draw up the list of stakeholders. That's an exercise that we'll do together, but think about it as you go through your library lives in the coming month or so. If somebody really strikes your fancy, make a note of it and bring it back to one of the planning meetings. And together we're going to develop the people that we need to talk to make this the plan that you need for the coming 10 years. We believe that we'll be bringing you as a board and staff a draft of the plan in early 2022. Nothing is final until you say it's final. Stephanie.
So that's just our brief overview. I'll stop sharing my slides in just a minute, but we wanted to make sure that we had some time. If any of you have any questions or concerns about the strategic planning process.
There's also a document that I put in the packet, Stephanie and Cindy, about the steering committee, the job of the steering committee.
Yes, so I think helps gives us a sense of the responsibilities of being part of that group.
Right.
Well, again, thank you so much for having us be part of your meeting today. And thank you for starting this journey with us. We're really looking forward to working with Rails and your members to develop your next strategic plan.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it as well. And we're really glad that Cindy is close by.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, Deidre.
Now the visibility plan.
Visibility plan.
Right. So, so this document is a result of a conversation that the board had a couple of months ago, specifically about right after the election, and because we don't get good voter turnout. And so, I mean, I'm talking, we have 1,200 members, about 200 libraries vote. So, so that started this conversation about, maybe we need to do more about making people aware of what it is that the board does, making people, helping people know the board better and having the board be active in some ways. And I mean, but it's not, that's a good thing anyway, I think, right? So these are just some ideas that we talked about last month, and I put this here for your information. We do, the trustee university idea would be, it comes from the highly successful directors university. We get new trustees every year, public library trustees, and they need training, and it's hard for them to get training. So I know Joe is going to do a great job with this idea that I had. No, I'm kidding. But, and I know that the state library is very interested in this as well. So, and I think that, Rails board sponsorship of this will also, highlight our board, but also I think encourage other trustees to be a part of it, rather than if it just comes from staff. We're planning on doing some meet the board events over the year, including around election time. As I've told you before, Mary regularly provides talking points about Rails activities, for you to use with member libraries. If you want to be active on social media, and some of our board members are, we can help you with that. And then, finally, the makeup of the board is, I think, an issue for it kind of, the law requires that we have a quorum of 8 public library trustees as on the board, as I mentioned this morning. And so when I was talking to Greg a week or so ago, I said, I think this kind of limits multi-type participation. If we didn't have to have so many public library trustees, we could have more school libraries or academic libraries. But he says, he thinks that this cannot be changed because of the way the systems were originally formed. So he's going to look into that. I think we're going to talk about that more. But because, multi-type cooperation and multi-type nature of our system is very important too, very foundational. And even if we made the board bigger, we'd still have to add more trustees as well. So nothing against trustees. We love you all. But, in terms of encouraging diverse participation, it makes it harder. So.
Well, I think the diversity of the trustee is, like Alex is a librarian and he's a trustee of the thing. So, is he on the library side or is he on the trustee side? It's,
of course, you're right. Yeah.
So,
well, I think I had raised this question years ago, and what I had said was, if 8 of the 15 seats are going to public library trustees, that means public library employees that want to be on this board are going to go after the at-large seats. And there's a lot of public libraries, so they're likely to get elected. So that's 4 more seats.
Right.
So now 12 of the 15 seats are public library representatives. And I think that's the issue.
Yeah. So we'll see. But anyway, I just wanted to make you aware of these things.
I kind of took my lead from Tom. I wanted to do this last summer, but as a Rails board member, I've been going to some of our libraries and just introducing myself, and they're so pleased to see somebody from Rails come and visit. And I know, Dee, you've gone to and do your visiting as well, but and they're so happy to show you around.
Oh, yes, it's really fun.
It's very interesting to see all the different buildings and all the different styles of Carnegie libraries.
Yeah.
It's just, it's good. So if anybody has time to do that in your locality, might be something to think about. And then you always can ask where a good place to go to lunch is.
It's true. And, we can help you with, figuring out, like if we have networking meetings, Dan, I think, you have gone to those. Those then you might get a lot of libraries at once. Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
They're fun. And Mary.
One of their concerns is delivery.
Yep.
And, they're really looking forward to the automation if that.
That's good to know.
They,
I'll just remind Greg that we need an extra $3 million or so. No problem.
the one specifically mentioned the Post-it notes.
Right. We won't have to spend that money anymore, right? Yeah.
But the talking points, Mary and her staff, they do a tremendous job on the talking points. I was out pushing for the trustee roundtable August 11th at a couple libraries in my area, and your talking points were really helpful.
Oh, great.
So.
And they're in my report. They're included in my report. And you can also, it's on a separate page, so you can easily take them with you as well.
Yes. So.
Just a quick question. Do we know of, or do you have a way of doing, have we ever looked at, of those who do vote, what kind of library they affiliate with? Do we have any kind of data? I know obviously it's anonymous voting, but
it's mostly public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of us that have really specific constituent groups, school library, special, academic, I feel like, and it's something I've been actually meaning, I probably will reach out to you separately to follow up on, because I think having a good distribution list of these are the, like I could go make up a list of all the academic libraries and look up all their information, but I'm sure you have a better list. It makes sense for us to say, I'm your academic representative, so they feel more of a connection to them. And right now I'm kind of thinking, I'm sure you can help me with that, but building that into our infrastructure, I'm your representative. And I think you probably do things maybe informally along that line already, or maybe not, I don't know, because I'm looking at you, Jenna, because you're in a very similar situation to me, but I think maybe building that into the process of I've been elected and now I'm here to represent your needs. So when you have questions, you should look to me as a resource to bring things to the board or to the staff.
Absolutely.
Sure. I'm representing public and sort of public library. Does this preclude me going to academic libraries?
Oh, no, not at all. You represent all libraries. You come from a different perspective, a specific perspective, but that it's the whole that you represent.
Okay, so on to 10.5.
Yes, we're getting there. Okay, so this is, I think, pretty easy, right, Jenna?
Yes.
Do you want to do this or me?
Why don't you start and then I will chime in.
Okay. So we revised the Advocacy Committee charge at the last meeting or the meeting before, and then realized that there were a couple, specifically one, that having a minimum of 4 Rails board members was just not really practical. So we want to reduce that to 2. Obviously, as many board members as want to be on it can be on it, but just to have that as a minimum was just not a practical idea, because we don't do that for any other committee. It's usually 2 that we require, or that's it. What would you like to add?
I don't think I have anything to add. I think my goal would be to make it as feasible as possible and as consistent as possible across all of our other committees. And it seems like, even though it's pretty excited, I've picked up a couple more advocacy board members today. Having that, the published minimum of 2, knowing that we could have more than 2.
Sure, absolutely.
Feels right.
Yep.
Okay.
So you could vote to revise that one simple thing, that would really help as we form our committees.
Okay. So any other discussion? If not, may I have a motion and second for approval of the revised Advocacy Committee charge?
I'll make the motion.
Scott, and a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, it's time for that famous thing, the Rails board member reports. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share at this time?
I'll throw out there that my library district likes to do big events, and obviously we haven't been able to do those kinds of things for quite a while now, but August 28th, we're having our large Dog Days of Summer. It's an outdoor pet adoption event. As far as we know, it's the largest pet adoption event held in the country at a library.
Wow,
but,
that's very cool.
The last time we had it in 2019, we had nearly 900 people attend, and it's all outdoors. So we are going forward with it this summer.
Nice.
It's our first big event after having it for 2 years. So.
That's great.
Having talked last night with Robin about pet adoption, we may be there. This
will be our 4th time holding the event. Last August would have been the 4th in a row, obviously. But the cool thing is now when people come back and they bring pets they adopted at previous events, because people can bring pets to the event. It's great. So.
That's
it's
cool.
Awesome.
Any other library news or library events coming up? Hopefully the mask mandate and stuff like that will not affect your event, Scott. So,
Great.
so let's move on to number 12 then, meeting recap and agenda building for next Rails board meeting.
Right. Well, you'll be talking about committees more.
Yes.
The executive
Committees.
committee, specifically, we just talked about having the conversation about the unserved or universal library service in September. I imagine there'll be more about strategic planning. Right, Monica? Yep. Who knows whether we'll have a new policy or we'll have to have more discussion about the vaccines, et cetera. Probably we will. You will be hearing from the state library about their services in August. That's what I can remember right now. Did I forget anything?
And it will be held here.
It will be held here.
And as well as East Peoria and Coal Valley.
Right.
If you'd like to attend there.
That's what I got.
Okay.
Does that do it for you, you think?
That just sounds like a full agenda right there.
Yes, it does.
Just, I think Monica will agree on that, right? Okay. It's time for the closed session. The board will move into closed session to discuss matters pertaining to personnel as per 5 Illinois compiled statutes, Chapter 120, Paragraph 2, Section C1, which states exceptions. A public body may hold closed meetings to consider the following subjects: litigation, when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the findings shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. May I have a motion to move into closed session?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you, Jenna. And may I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Diane, thank you. Emily, will you please call roll?
Yes. Sue Busenbark.
Yes.
Alice Creason.
Here.
Robin Helmthal. Here. Diane Hollister.
Here.
Chris Kenny.
Here.
Jennifer McIntosh.
Here.
Jenna Namek-Luisi.
Yes.
Scott Poynton.
Yes.
Patricia Smith.
Yes.
Thomas Stagg.
Yes.
Beth Teppin.
Here.
Alex Vancina.
Yes.
Karen Wojcik.
Yes.
So we have no follow-up actions to close session, so we adjourn this meeting at 3:17.